You know that feeling, right? It's like 3 a.m., you're just staring at the ceiling.
Yeah.
Your mind is just buzzing, replaying every little thing from the day, planning tomorrow's huge to-do list. You're just desperate for rest, tossing, turning. Sleep feels like it's totally playing hard to get.
Oh, definitely. We've all been there.
It's that moment when sleep feels like some kind of cruel trick, always just out of reach.
And what do? We often grab for the quick fixes, maybe a melatonin tablet, some valerian tea, just hoping for that magic bullet solution.
Absolutely. But what if the way we even think about sleep, maybe the very desire for it, is missing something really crucial?
Mm.
Today, on the deep dive, we're really aiming to cut through all that noise, our mission, uncover why sleep is so elusive for so many of us, and figure out how you can genuinely take control. Because the fascinating stuff we've looked into today suggests something, well, pretty surprising,
Yeah, Jay.
that you can learn to sleep, quote, only if you want to.
Okay, that sounds a little counterintuitive, I know.
Yeah.
Only if you want to. Doesn't everyone want to sleep when they're exhausted?
That's what you'd think. But we're going to challenge some really common assumptions today.
Right. So by the end of this deep dive, you'll hopefully have some practical, actionable strategies and maybe a really new understanding of what it takes to get that coherent, restorative sleep. A bit of a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed on this.
Exactly. So if it's not just about trying harder to sleep, what is this want actually about? Let's unpack this. It feels like a bit of a mind-bending idea to start with.
Okay, so a core idea, almost a shocking one from the material, is this. For many people, the real block isn't a lack of desire to fall asleep initially.
Right.
It's an unconscious lack of decision or maybe even desire to actually stay asleep.
Whoa. Okay. An unconscious lack of decision. That really does shift the perspective, doesn't it?
It does.
So it's not just getting over that first hurdle, falling asleep, but there's this deeper, maybe subconscious commitment needed to remain asleep?
Precisely.
Yeah.
The research points to people who have that sort of mental overdrive. Their minds just won't switch off. They often fall into this exact trap. They lie down, close their eyes, but instead of drifting off, their thoughts are super active, often churning over problems, conflicts from the day.
Oh, I know that feeling well. The internal dialogue just doesn't stop.
The powerful barrier. And here's the real paradox, the fascinating bit.
Right.
It actually takes more perceived energy, more conscious effort to stop thinking than it does to just let your mind race.
Really? More energy to stop.
Think of it like a runaway train. It takes way more effort to slam on the brakes and stop it than to just let it keep going, right?
Yeah, okay.
So when your body feels low on energy, maybe just mentally drained, it can interpret this as a threat signal. And that triggers the stress hormones, cortisol, catecholamines, your basic fight-for-flight stuff. And that physiological state, it actively prevents real relaxation and, proper sleep.
So let me get this straight. You're mentally exhausted, which your body reads as danger, so it goes on high alert, pumps out stress chemicals, and then you can't sleep because you're literally wired.
That's it. It's a truly vicious cycle.
Wow. No wonder it's so hard to break.
It really is. And the sources are clear. They acknowledge how incredibly difficult it is to just put the mind in blank, especially if you're dealing with chronic insomnia.
Right.
So this deep dive, it isn't about promising easy fixes. It's really advocating for a pretty fundamental shift in your mindset.
Okay, so what does this actually mean for someone struggling night after night? It sounds like we need to get to the root cause, not just treat the symptom of being awake.
Exactly. For that real reparative sleep, you have to change your mindset. The source material talks about letting go of the pleasure you might subconsciously get from engaging with those problems or thoughts at night.
Pleasure? That sounds weird. Who finds pleasure in worrying at 3 a.m.?
Well, it's often not conscious pleasure. It can be a subconscious sense of control, maybe. That feeling that if you just think about it one more time, mull it over again, you'll crack it, you'll solve it.
Ah, okay, I can see that. That illusion of control.
Right. So letting go means trusting your subconscious, maybe signaling safety, allowing your brain to actually disengage. It's not about forcing one good night. It's about a consistent conscious commitment to this mental shift night after night.
That's a profound shift. Okay, let's move from that internal world, the mind, to something more external. Because the research reveals what they call the great secret, the key to unlocking truly restorative sleep.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting and maybe simpler than you'd think. The single secret key, apparently responsible for like 50% of coherent restorative sleep.
50%? That's huge.
It's a big claim. But the key is consistent morning sun exposure.
Just getting some sun in the morning. not popping a melatonin pill first thing.
Exactly. The critical factor here isn't about boosting melatonin in the morning, that's for later. It's about cortisol.
Ah, cortisol, the stress hormone.
Well, yes, but it's not just about making it super high or super low. It's about moderating it, controlling its natural curve throughout the day. If you have persistently high cortisol, it actually blocks melatonin from showing up later when you need it.
Okay.
So morning light helps set that healthy rhythm. It tells your body, okay, time to be awake now. And crucially, it also sets the timer for later, time to prepare for rest.
Right, so the morning sun basically calibrates your whole daily hormonal clock, paving the way for melatonin later. Makes sense. So what's the specific ritual? Can I just sit by the window with my coffee?
Not quite. The guidance is pretty specific. You want to aim for about 15 minutes of sun exposure before 9 a.m.
Okay.
And that timing might need adjusting depending on where you live, your sunrise time. But the key is it needs to be direct sun on your face, on your body. No windows, no curtains blocking those beneficial rays.
Direct sun, even if it's freezing cold or boiling hot out.
Yep. Even if it's uncomfortable for a bit. Making it a consistent habit is what matters. Apparently, those morning UV rays are gentler, and they even offer some protection against the harsher afternoon sun.
Okay. 15 minutes direct sun before 9 a.m. No excuses. This also kind of challenges another common belief, doesn't it? What about taking a nap, a siesta? Lots of people think that's healthy.
Yeah, that leads to an important point raised in the material. It clearly states that, generally speaking, humans aren't really designed for siestas or regular daytime napping.
Really?
Unless you're genuinely ill. It seems it's a widespread misconception that they're universally good for you. Our bodies really thrive on that clear wake-sleep cycle.
Wow. Okay, that busts a myth for a lot of us. And speaking of things we put in our bodies, what's the link here with vitamin D and magnesium and sleep?
Right, it's all connected. So vitamin D, you synthesize it from sun exposure, obviously. But if you supplement with it, the advice is don't take it at night. It can actually inhibit your melatonin production.
Okay, good tip.
And here's the kicker. Vitamin D needs magnesium to actually get distributed and used properly in your body.
Oh.
So if you don't have enough magnesium, taking extra vitamin D might just deplete the magnesium you do have, making sleep even worse.
Wow, so you could be trying to help with vitamin D, but actually making things worse if your magnesium is low.
Exactly.
Right.
It really highlights how crucial that nutrient balance is. It's not just about one thing. They even mentioned an anecdote about blind people often suffering from insomnia, which just underlines how deeply important those light cues are for regulating sleep.
That's a huge takeaway. Sun sets the stage, nutrients support it. Okay, now let's shift focus to the bedroom itself. How do we turn it into a proper sleep sanctuary?
Right. Your actual sleep environment. It plays a massive role. First off, temperature.
Yeah.
Hugely important.
Okay.
The ideal, according to the sources, is a cool bedroom, somewhere between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius. That's about 64 to 72 Fahrenheit.
Cool. Not warm.
Definitely cool. Excessive heating, cranking it up too high, actively gets in the way of deep reparative sleep.
So, if you're someone who loves a really cozy bedroom in winter, you might be unknowingly sabotaging your own sleep. How do we get that ideal cool temperature without freezing?
Well, if you use AC, maybe cool the room down before bed, then turn it off and just use a fan once you're settled. But critically, always keep a window cracked open, even just a little bit.
Even if it's cold outside.
Yeah, even if it's cold. You need that oxygen flow. You could just dress warmer in bed to compensate.
Okay, speaking of dressing warmer, what about bedding? Pajamas. Any specific advice there?
The recommendation is layering blankets, maybe a thin one, then a thicker one on top, so you can easily adjust if you get too hot or cold during the night.
Makes sense.
For what you wear, long cotton pajamas if it's cold, or maybe just cotton shorts and a white t-shirt if it's warm. But here's a really specific, interesting tip. No socks.
No socks, but my feet get cold.
I know, it sounds counterintuitive again. But the idea is to keep one foot outside the covers. The sole of your foot apparently acts like a thermostat for your body, helping regulate your core temperature for optimal sleep. Socks or any restrictive covering interfere with that.
1 foot out, like a little temperature gauge? Okay, I'll have to try that. What about underwear?
Ideally, sleeping without underwear is best for comfort and body regulation.
Got it. And what about the big things like the mattress and pillows? Any guidance on the best types? Springs, foam, feathers.
For the mattress, the ideal is described as semi-rigid. So not rock hard, but definitely not super soft and squishy either. Foam is suggested as a good, often cost-effective option compared to springs.
Okay, semi-rigid foam. And pillows.
For pillows, viscoelastic memory foam is highly recommended. The key is maintaining proper spinal alignment while you sleep. Soft, fluffy feather pillows often don't provide that necessary support.
Right, you want your neck aligned with your spine. Okay, it feels like every little detail matters. And the sources even bring in feng shui principles for sleep. What are some of those and why do they supposedly help?
Yeah, it's about connecting this to the bigger picture of harmonious energy flow, which is the core of feng shui. For the bedroom, a few key things stand out.
Like what?
Okay, so the headboard of your bed should ideally point north or east. Also, importantly, you should be able to see the door to the room from your bed, but not be directly in line with it, maybe diagonally across.
Why is seeing the door important?
It taps into an instinctive sense of safety and calm. Think about it phylogenetically. Our ancestors would have felt safer if they could see the entrance to their cave or shelter, right? It allows for unconscious relaxation.
Ah, okay, that makes a sort of primal sense. Feeling secure. What else from feng shui?
The bed should have some clearance underneath, at least 20 centimeters or about 8 inches, to allow energy to flow freely. Your feet shouldn't point directly out the door. And, a big one, no mirrors reflecting the bed.
No mirrors reflecting the bed. Any other elements?
Yeah, incorporate plants for the earth element, make sure you have fresh air, that open window we talked about, and maybe consider adding a water element like a small tabletop fountain to create balance. There's also this interesting aside that humans slept on the ground for millions of years, and our bodies are maybe still adapting to sleeping on elevated mattresses. It speaks to that deep connection with the earth.
That's fascinating, tying our modern habits back to ancient instincts and environments. But out of all the environmental factors, the most critical one seems to be light, or rather, the lack of it, right?
Absolutely critical. Non-negotiable, really. The research pounds this point home. You need complete darkness in your bedroom until at least 6 a.m.
Complete darkness. No little standby lights.
None. Even tiny lights from a phone charger, a digital clock, anything can be enough to prevent the vital morning testosterone pulse. And apparently, once that pulse is missed for the day, you can't just get it back later.
Wow. That's a powerful reason to get some blackout curtains or tape over those little LEDs. Okay, so we've optimized the environment. Now let's talk practical tools for the body and mind right before sleep.
Right. How do we actively guide ourselves into that sleep state? The power of your breath is an incredible tool here. The sources introduce square breathing as a really good starting point.
Square breathing, how does that work?
It's simple. You inhale for a count of 4 seconds, hold your breath gently for 4, exhale slowly for 4, and then hold the breath out, lungs empty, for 4. Then repeat. It's great for calming the nervous system.
Okay, 4-4-4. That sounds like a good basic technique for stress in general. Is there a more specific one recommended purely for sleep?
Yes. Once you're comfortable with square breathing, they suggest moving to what's called the infallible 4-7-8 method.
Infallible. Sounds promising.
Well, highly effective, let's say.
Yeah.
It's inhale through your nose for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7 seconds, and then exhale slowly and completely through your mouth for 8 seconds.
Inhale 4, hold 7, exhale 8.
Exactly. One important caution, though. Don't force that empty lung hold after the exhale, or even the 7-second hold if it feels stressful. Holding the breath, especially empty, can sometimes cause anxiety for people, which is obviously counterproductive. So practice the square breathing first to get the rhythm, build comfort.
Right, gentle and consistent practice. Got it. What about layering technology onto this? Any aids recommended?
Yes, this is quite interesting. The recommendation is to combine that 4-7-8 breathing with binaural or asynchronic waves, specifically delta or theta frequencies.
Binaural beats. I've heard of those. How do they work?
You listen through over-ear headphones. Each ear gets a slightly different frequency tone. Your brain then perceives a third frequency, the difference between the two inside your head. It's described as being like a gentle brain massage.
A brain massage. I like that.
Yeah. It encourages your brainwaves to slow down into those sleep-conducive states, delta or theta. You can layer these beats with calming ambient sounds too, like rain or specific types of relaxing music.
Cool. Okay, so you're breathing, maybe listening to brain massage waves. What about how you're actually positioned in bed? Is there an optimal way to lie?
Yes, there is guidance for both falling asleep and then for staying asleep. To initially fall asleep, the ideal posture suggested is on your back.
On your back, okay?
But with a thick cushion or a pillow placed under your knees. This keeps them slightly bent in semi-flexion. Your hands should just rest comfortably on the bed, palms up or down, doesn't matter.
Pillow under the knees.
Okay.
And then once you're asleep, because most people move around, right?
Absolutely. Once you naturally shift, sleeping on your left side is actually preferred.
Left side. Why the left?
Two main reasons given. Your liver's on the right side, so lying on the left takes pressure off it. It's also thought to be better for your stomach's positioning and digestion.
Left side for liver and stomach. Interesting. So start on the back with knees bent, then aim for the left side if you shift. What positions should we actively avoid?
Sleeping on your stomach is generally considered not ideal, particularly for tissue repair overnight. And while starting on your back is good for falling asleep, staying flat on your back all night isn't always great either. It can sometimes lead to things like head pain or numb arms, maybe due to compressing nerves in the neck or back of the head.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a lot of practical physical advice. Now let's touch on supplements. The quick fixes we mentioned earlier might not be the whole story, but can supplements play a helpful role?
They can definitely play a supportive role, yes. The sources mentioned a few key ones. Melatonin, first off, is seen as natural and non-addictive. The typical dose range mentioned is 10-20 milligrams, but starting with 10 milligrams is often ideal.
Okay, melatonin, what else?
Magnesium is crucial. We touched on it with vitamin D. Specifically, the sources highlight sucrosomial magnesium.
Sucrosomial, that's a new one on me. Why that specific type?
It's mentioned because it apparently has much better absorption. It's basically magnesium wrapped in a special coating that helps protect it from stomach acid and allows it to get into your cells more effectively. So you get more bang for your buck, benefiting sleep, and maybe even helping with bowel regularity. It's preferred over some other common forms like glycinate for these reasons.
Better absorption. Makes sense you'd want that.
Okay.
Sucrosomial magnesium, anything else?
GABA is mentioned. That's gamma-aminobutyric acid. It's an inhibitory neurotransmitter, meaning it helps calm brain activity, which obviously aids sleep.
Right, GABA for calming the brain. What about adaptogens like ashwagandha? It's pretty popular these days.
Ashwagandha gets a mention too. It can potentially be taken in 2 doses. One upon waking, maybe before your sun exposure, and then another dose, perhaps 500 milligrams, around when the sun starts to set. The idea is it helps modulate that cortisol curve we talked about earlier.
Okay, morning and evening for ashwagandha to help cortisol.
Yeah. Though it's noted that other adaptogens, like reishi or rhodiola, might be better suited for daytime energy and focus rather than directly for sleep. And one important caution was raised about tryptophan, or its derivative, 5-HTP.
Oh, what's the caution there? People often take this for sleep.
Right, but the warning is that for some individuals, these can paradoxically stimulate excitatory neurotransmitters, like glutamate chemicals that ramp up brain activity. So it could completely counteract the intended calming effect.
Wow, so it could actually make things worse for some people.
Potentially, yes. It might be something that requires testing or at least very careful personal observation if you decide to try it.
That's really critical info. Don't just assume something labeled sleep aid will work the same for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, last major piece of the puzzle. Food. How does fueling our body impact our slumber?
Hugely important, as you'd expect. This brings us to the crucial questions. When should you eat dinner? And what should you eat for optimal sleep?
Okay, let's start with timing. How late is too late for dinner?
The sources are pretty clear. The latest ideal time for dinner is 7 p.m. Absolute latest, maybe 8 p.m., but earlier is better. You need to give your body enough time to digest properly before you expect it to switch into sleep mode.
7 p.m. Okay, so those 9 or 10 p.m. dinners are definitely out if sleep is the goal. What should be on the plate for that early dinner?
An ideal light dinner would include healthy fats. Think things like blue fish, sardines, salmon. Avocado is great too, though maybe better consumed earlier in the day for energy. Also, resistant starch carbohydrates.
Resistant starch, like what?
Like potatoes that have been cooked, then cooled down, maybe cooked the day before and refrigerated. Cooling them increases the resistant starch, which is good for your gut and blood sugar. Yeah. Pair these with good quality protein like chicken or seafood. And carbonated water is also suggested as a good beverage choice.
Okay, healthy fats, resistant starch carbs, quality protein. Sounds pretty balanced and satisfying. What are the absolute no-nos for dinner then? The big sleep disruptors.
The big ones to avoid strongly are refined carbs and sugars. So things like pasta, industrial pizza, sugary drinks, heavy high-calorie desserts, also alcohol, of course, and coffee, especially after maybe 4 or 5 p.m.
Why are those so bad before bed?
Because they fire up your liver. Yeah. Your liver has to work really hard to process all that stuff, the sugar, the alcohol, the refined carbs. That processing demands energy that your body needs to be dedicated to sleep, rest, and repair processes overnight.
Ah, so eating that stuff basically forces your body to choose between digesting or sleeping, And digestion wins, pulling resources away from sleep.
Exactly. And this directly explains that really common phenomenon, doesn't it? Waking up wide awake in the middle of the night.
You mean that awful 3 a.m. wake-up call?
Precisely. Waking between 3:00 and 3:30 a.m., often for about half an hour or so. It's very frequently linked directly to an overloaded liver. It's working overtime to detoxify from that heavy or unhealthy dinner you had hours earlier.
And it wakes you up because it's pulling energy. Wow, the
Yeah.
connection is so clear when you put it that way.
It is. And speaking of surprising connections, think about waking up with a headache. Most people instantly think, oh, I must be dehydrated.
Yeah, drink some water. Right?
Well, maybe. But the sources suggest that waking headaches are often linked more closely to sugar consumption the day before, or sometimes even drinking distilled water rather than simple dehydration.
Sugar headaches, another reason to skip that late-night dessert. Okay. Are there any drinks, maybe teas or infusions that are beneficial in the evening?
Yes, definitely. Several calming teas get the nod. Green tea, surprisingly, but maybe decaf. Chamomile, melissa, lemon balm, valerian, linden, lavender.
Lots of good options there.
And the suggestion is you can even combine several for a stronger effect, like maybe green tea plus melissa plus valerian for a real punch to the back of the neck, as they put it metaphorically.
Huh. A gentle sleep punch. What about drinks to avoid in the evening, besides coffee?
Yeah, avoid things like mate, obviously coffee, but also potentially stimulating herbs like rosemary or mint tea for some people. Golden milk with turmeric is mentioned as another potentially beneficial option, though.
Oh, okay, good list. Wow, this has been a really packed deep dive. We've covered so much ground.
We really have.
From that surprising idea about our brain's unconscious role, maybe not wanting to stay asleep,
Right, the unconscious sabotage.
to the incredibly simple but powerful role of just getting morning sun to set our internal clock, that 50% claim is still kind of blowing my mind.
It's huge, isn't it? And then we dug into crafting that sleep sanctuary, the cool temps, the right bedding, no socks, 1 foot out.
Yeah.
Even the feng shui principles, like seeing the door but not being aligned with it, the clearance under the bed, it all adds up.
And the practical tools, too. The 4-7-8 breathing, the binaural beats that brain massage idea.
Optimal positions, the key supplements like that suprasomial magnesium and GABA, with the important cautions about others like tryptophan.
And finally, tying it all together with when and what we eat. That liver connection to the 3 a.m. wake-up is such a game changer for understanding sleep disruptions. You know, before really digging into this material, I definitely thought my occasional late-night snack was pretty harmless.
Yeah, easy mistake to make.
But hearing about the liver having to work overtime, pulling energy from sleep, it just puts all those times I woke up bolt upright at 3 a.m. into such clear, stark perspective.
It really does crystallize it, doesn't it? This isn't about finding one magic bullet. It's truly a holistic approach, all these pieces interconnected, working together to orchestrate genuinely restorative sleep.
It underlines that it's a conscious decision, requires consistent practice, not just something that happens to you.
Exactly.
So the final thought then, if you really want to sleep well, truly deeply well, you have to rethink how you live during the day. The sources use this great analogy. Just like a pilot needs a really long, smooth descent to land a plane safely.
Nice analogy.
Yeah, your body needs that time, that preparation throughout the day to land smoothly into sleep. So the question for you listening is, what small shift will you make today to start signaling to your body that a smooth landing into sleep is cleared for arrival tonight?